Right. So I'm going to get started of this webinar. This topic I was actually a little bit nervous about doing because this is related to your career and legal careers, but it's not necessarily geared towards something that's going to tell you the mechanics of getting a position in a law firm or how to keep a position in a law firm. And it may not seem like that at the outset that it's about that. This is actually, if you understand this webinar and you understand and can appreciate the message of it, it could be, frankly, one of the more impactful webinars you ever attend or talks, because it's going to teach you how people end up achieving goals and the process that they use to do. And at the outset, I wanted to just give a few points from people that I know, and I've certainly met and gotten to know a lot of people in my career and life that have achieved incredible things, whether it's in business or in acting and writing and politics and things. And you always have to ask, what is it they're doing differently that enables them to achieve goals and things that they're trying to do? And they basically, it's what I'm going to talk about today. They're able to really get a lot of desire behind their goals. They're able to know exactly what they want and how to achieve them. And how does this translate into your legal career? People are in law school wanting to get certain types of jobs. People are working in certain types of jobs and want to get better jobs. People want to become a partner in a law firm, and people want to generate business, and people want to move to different markets. People want to get ahead when other people aren't. All of this really relates to how you can do that. And almost every attorney that I know of that's really gone very far in their career has understood the lessons that I'm going to teach you today. And this is a live webinar, by the way. I will give this presentation, and then after the presentation, we'll take a short break for a minute or two, and then I will come back and we'll answer questions, anything you have regarding this or your career. But this is an extremely important topic, because unless you have this one thing, any goals that you set are really quite meaningless, and you won't reach them. And I do have, when I come back from the break, I will share with you another thing that I've done that will show you how to set actual goals and how to remind yourself of them. But all of this is very important. And it's usually something that people do at the beginning of the year. They reflect back on what happened the past year, and then they come back and they will write down they will look at what they want to do. And then they will work through that throughout the year. And I'll also provide you with some resources to just kind of commercial goal keeping things that I like to use. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But first, I just want to give this presentation. It's not that long of a presentation compared to a lot of presentations that I give, but I do think this is very impactful and something that is usually missing from people that don't reach goals. If you don't become a partner with a lot of business, if you don't become associate in the type of firm you want, if you don't do all these things, then this is something that you're doing wrong, and that you can fix it by doing this. And frankly, if you understand this, it always works. I've seen so many people that graduated from schools that they weren't happy of, that failed the bar multiple times, that had all sorts of bad things happen to them. And they did the things here, and not saying bad things, but they weren't achieving their goals. And they picked up on this messaging, whether it's from me or they just did it instinctively. Most people, by the way, are doing it instinctively. I'm not saying that I cause it, but there's certainly other people out there that talk about goals. So this is very important. And in order for you to achieve anything in your life that requires effort that other people are trying to do, you really do need to have a massive desire to achieve goals. And there's really nothing more important to your career success than having that desire. Because if you don't, what'll happen is you will be working for people that have that desire and are living with that desire. So your choice is to be part of other people's goals or to have goals of your own. And I would submit to you that you're much better off having your own goals and having other people serve those goals than you are basically not having goals. And you should have goals really for every single day. You should have goals. I start my morning by writing down 1 or 2 goals for the day, things that I just absolutely must achieve. I have goals that go out for 5, 10, and 20 years, and I have annual goals and monthly goals. So this is very important. And the larger goals are, the more desire you need to have. You need to be like all fired up to do these things. What happens is every year there's these law firms and big law firms in different cities, and some of them will have 50 first-year associates. And out of those 50, everyone will come in saying, yeah, I'd like to be a partner. Some of them will, a high percentage. And others will come in and say, yes, this is absolutely what I'm going to do. And they focus on it. They realize that they have to be part of the solution. They can't go against the firm. They have to be supportive of the firm. They can't be looking out for themselves. They need to make this goal. They need to make people that they're working for feel that they want to do that. They need to work hard. All these things are things that people do with goals. People that don't have goals will find fault with their firm. They'll find fault with their position. They'll find fault with practicing law. They'll do all these things. And if you do that, you're not going to ever achieve the goals you want. So you need to have goals for these things. And you also need to have large goals. I know attorneys that in their first year of practice, their goal was to have more business than any other attorney in a market, or to be the most well-known in a practice area in the country. Things that you wouldn't expect that a young attorney would do, but actually ends up achieving because they have these goals. And what are your goals? Are your goals to be the best attorney in your practice area in the country? Are your goals to be the most successful attorney in your firm? And what are your goals? And wishing for these things is far different than understanding that you need to work yourself up into a white heat and just get very enthusiastic about these goals. And if you go to the harrisonbarnes.com and you search for, the book Think and Grow Rich, you can download it there for free. It's not protected by copyrights anymore, but that particular book talks about working yourself up into just a white heat to basically whatever your goal is. You have to visualize it. You have to constantly remind yourself of it. And when you do that, your whole world begins to change. And so you may have desires for something good to happen to you. You may have a desire to have a certain amount of money, or to have a certain type of friends or spouse, or or job. But all of this is meaningless if you don't continually work yourself up into things. Most people that enter college, for example, or any school, have a wish that they would get all A's or something like that, or be a really good student. But obviously only a very small fraction of those people end up with those grades. And the people that do get those grades figure out how to make it happen. They don't. And the reason I'm using these examples is because everyone here has gone to school. This is probably the most example I can give. But if somebody's doing that, they're probably working much harder than their classmates. They're taking classes that they know they will do well in, so that they're interested in and that they can throw themselves into. And they're pushing themselves to get those grades because of the effort they put in. And they're probably setting goals. Most people that do well in anything have goals. They have goals to get a certain type of grades if they want to go to college, or when they're in college, and then when they're in law school. It's the same thing with money. Most people want to have money to fulfill their dreams, whether they want to buy homes or cows or have money in the bank. But the very small people, a fraction of people ever have all the money they want. As a matter of fact, almost the entire world doesn't have the money that they want. Even the people that have a lot of money often don't have it. In order to have a lot of money, that's what's important to you. And I'm not saying it should be. For some people, spirituality is important. For others, community and family is important. So I'm not saying that money is the most important thing. If you're having friends is important, you can do that. But if you have a desire to make money, for example, you're going to probably work more than others that others would work. And you're going to see opportunities where others are likely to see obstacles, and you're going to find things and see things that other people wouldn't see. If you want to make a huge impact on the world by doing something positive, that's what you want. Most people don't do that. Instead of that, they really don't have a desire to do anything of major significance and just meander through life watching other people in the world who manage to do things. What's interesting when you talk about goals, people having different goals depending on their environment. So it's when I see people, for example, that went to Yale Law School, they're almost always trying to do things that are having a huge impact on the world, or in terms of helping others or changing policy and things. Whereas people that go to NYU, for example, tend to be more interested in working in law firms. And that's different people have different goals depending on their environment. So If you are coming out of a major law school where everyone's trying to work in big firms, that's your goal. If you're coming out of a law school where the most successful graduates are personal injury attorneys, then that's your goal. It's just people have goals often depending on the environments they're in, and your environments will often set your goals. So you should think about the schools you go to will often set your goals. The people you work for will often set the thermometer of your goals. And you may not even know you have goals or could have goals unless you're surrounding yourself with other people that have goals. It's interesting, like, for example, in places like Silicon Valley, where people are starting tech companies, there's people have those type of goals, and it makes them, a lot of them become billionaires and things because they're around people that have goals with technology and that sort of thing. So being around people with goals is important, but a lot of people, they sit on the sidelines, and this actually may be you. This is a large portion of attorneys. They will sit on the sidelines and they will criticize their firm. They'll criticize the people working there. The bosses, they'll criticize the profession. They'll criticize the clients. And that doesn't really get you anywhere. If you want to do really great things in your career, you're going to have to be like the people that really want it and do the absolute best you can to reach it. I'll tell you just a quick story that's an aside about someone that made partner at this firm I used to be at, Quinn Emanuel. And they had their partnership elections, I think in, I don't know, late December or something. And then they announced the new partners at the beginning of January. And this particular guy had worked very hard, but they didn't make him partner. And I think that he was said, wait till next year, whatever. And the bylaws of the firm, I don't know if this is exactly true, but something about the bylaws will allow them to only elect partners once a year that are from a class or something. So that happened to him, and he really wanted to be a partner. So I'm not suggesting anybody in this call do this, but to show how much he wanted it, he started billing like 350 to 400 hours a month, which it may sound, I did the math at one point, it means that he's basically working 16 to 18 hours a day, every day of the week. And after 3 months of this, the firm just couldn't believe it. And they actually went in and changed their bylaws so they can make him partner. So that's an example of someone that really wanted something, that has a desire. And you do not get anything in your life and your career unless you actually have a major desire for it. And it's wishing for something is not going to give you the power and so forth to you're seeking. And if you have a wish that's backed by desire, you're really going to start achieving. The more you desire something, the more you're going to be able to achieve it. And this desire is what's going to make you excel. So it's just a quick lesson here, and I'll get into the meat of the presentation. But on Alice in Wonderland, Alice is trapped in it's a famous book kind of movie, and she doesn't know how to get out. So she moves between here and there. She comes to a crossroad, and she's confused over what road to take. And then she sees a cat sitting on a boulder, and she asks the cat which way she should go. And he says, it depends on where you want to get to. And she says she doesn't know where she wants to go. And then he says, then it doesn't matter. The lesson there is that if you don't have a goal, you're just winding through life. And attorneys that aren't successful in their careers, that aren't getting what they want, are not having clear goals. They doesn't look like they have goals. Their resumes don't look like they have goals. The resume may talk about different practice areas. It may talk about things unrelated to the practice of law. It may show no commitment to doing one thing or no commitment to a firm. It may show, you can tell by a resume, by the way, if someone is committed. You can tell by your resume if you have a desire to do something, because if you have a desire to be really good, you'll make your resume as good as it possibly can be. And not only will you do that, but you'll figure out ways to make that resume appeal to firms. You'll figure out ways to approach firms in a smart way. You'll do all of these things if you really want something. People that really want something, by the way, they're not just sending out resumes. They're sending out resumes. They're trying to meet people from the firm so they can tell them about things. They're trying to network to the extent that they can. They're showing interest in things that they believe the firm does. They're trying to get on cases where they'll be exposed to them. I mean, this is how people do things when they want something. You can't just have a desire and say, I want to work at a better firm than I'm at, or I want to work at a firm where I get fewer hours. If you do that, I just want you to make sure you understand your entire career is just basically going to be dictated by others. It's just how it works. If you're not the hardest worker in a firm in your class or one of the hardest workers, you're going to be the first to let go, because if you don't seem like you really want it, people want to keep people around that really want things. And so you can't be wandering aimlessly in your legal career, or you have to know what you want. If you leave a law firm and go in-house, then a law firm's going to know that you're not focused on being a law firm partner or staying a law firm partner. And that's what you will get. You will show that you don't have that goal, that your goal is something else. And once you do that, you're pretty much out. So all this stuff about goals is very important. It's important how you think about your career. It's important that you have goals. It's important that you know what you want. Now, it could be anything that you want. Your goal could be, I want to start my own firm as a solo practitioner doing real estate transactions. That could be your goal. And I want to be the best solo practitioner. And there's all sorts of goals you can set. But if you don't have a goal, then you're obviously going to, nothing is going to happen to you. Every person that I know that does not have a fulfilling career, that's unhappy, that hasn't reached their potential, has never had firm goals. They don't know what their goals are. They move between different things all the time. They never commit to something. They don't know where they're going. And that's exactly what life hands them. It's just moving around, not doing very much. So now I'm going to talk about something that probably be not that interesting to a lot of people, but if you're a lawyer, I guess it might be interesting, or a law student. And it's about just how do you even apply to law schools and get interested in that? What is it that people do that gets them into certain schools sometimes, that when you think about something like going to law school, and why this is an interesting story, is that most people, when they think about law school, know that getting into a law school is basically a combination and a formula between your LSAT and your grade point average. And that's how people get in. But I'm going to tell you how to get into law school, or some things that I did that are not necessarily normal, and how you can achieve goals when you're really doing things that are not necessarily normal and that people wouldn't do without this sort of motivation. So I went to college basically wanting to get a degree and to become a contractor doing asphalt related work, which just sounds crazy, but that's what I was interested in. I thought it was a lot of fun. I made money doing it. But I got into school around people that had different goals, and I started basically getting interested in a law school. There were two people that I was very competitive with, and they both told me that they were planning on going to the same school. It's not really that notable in that, but I'm telling you how I reacted to it and what it meant to me. There was a guy that I had gone to school with in childhood. He was attending the University of Michigan, and one evening I ran into him at a bar, not a restaurant, in Detroit. And this guy and I had been extremely competitive with each other until I graduated from elementary school. And we would always we were in the same class together and always be like number 1 or 2 on each class. But no matter how I tried, I'd always be number 2. So he'd have a 97, I'd be a 96 or 95 and that sort of thing. And so this constant competition happened for several years of my life when I was young. And this person was smart, probably smarter than me, and did much better in every course and everything he took. So I hadn't seen him probably from the time I'd been about 12 years old, and then suddenly ran into him 8 or 9 years later when I was in my 20s. And he announced that he was planning on applying to this University of Virginia Law School, which I knew absolutely nothing about. Didn't really know about law schools, wasn't really trying to get into law schools at that point. But I had no other idea why he was interested in that school. I was just saying, what are you planning on doing with your scraps? What are you up to? Or that sort of thing. And he just basically announced that's what he was going to do. I think he said it was inexpensive or something compared to other schools. And we were both attending decent colleges at the time. I heard nothing more about this school. I didn't even know. I figured maybe it's a top 50. I didn't know rankings or anything. But when he said he was interested in it, I immediately, because I'd always been competitive with him, which is crazy, that's not much time passed, I decided that I was probably interested in that too, because if he was trying to compete to go there, then I would too. And I spent a lot of basically years of my life competing with this guy. And I wasn't even, I think I might have been after my first year of college or something when this happened, and not that big of a deal. And then he told me how hard the school was and dream to attend it and all that sort of thing. And I guess at that time I had no idea what it is now, but they only had a very limited number of spots for people from out of state. It was a fairly difficult school to get into. When I got back to school after having this conversation with this guy, my girlfriend, there was some guy, I think, living in her dorm, introduced me to this guy that was very smart. He had a perfect score in his LSAT and had a kind of grade point average that I'd never even heard of anybody having at the University of Chicago. And I couldn't believe how smart this guy was because he had these great grades and LSAT scores. And I'd also run into this guy at school, and my girlfriend was very impressed with this guy, and he wanted to go to the school too, which I, at the time, again, didn't really know very much about. And I had dinner with this guy and several other people, and everyone was very impressed with how smart he was and this sort of thing. And so he was older than me, and he got into every single law school he applied to. And he chose the school, which I thought was crazy. Like, why would someone go there over Harvard or Stanford or something? Why would someone choose the school that was, frankly, lower ranked, not the same type of school? He talked about how it was a pleasant place to be in the city or something. But over the next year, I heard my girlfriend talk about how impressed she was with this guy going to the school. And again, it's a good school. I'm at. But I was surrounded by people that were saying, this is a great thing. Now, this is one thing I want to also tell you about environments. So the environment you're in, many times, if you go to work at a giant law firm, the people there, if they come out of very good backgrounds, are going to have different goals than people might at a firm doing some other type of work that's smaller and where this is what happens when you get into environments with competitive people. You always want to try to be in the best environment you can. If you wonder about schools, the schools all teach the same subjects in the law. There's no difference. The only difference is the people around and how competitive they were. So anyway, so back to the school. And by the way, also both of these people were interested in the school because at the time, I think had the lowest tuition by far for out-of-state and in-state students of any school in the country. So that's why people really wanted to go there. They wanted to go there because they could save on tuition money. It was still a good school. But because of these people that I was around, girlfriend, these people and everything, I decided that I was very interested in going to that school. And honestly, at that point, it's almost looked like the last thing I should be doing was going to law school. I was an asphalt contractor. I was doing very well. I was growing a business. I was having a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, liked the people. I was employing people I was very interested in helping people in the city of Detroit that had problems. So I was taking people out of drug rehabilitation centers and things that hadn't been able to get jobs and training them and helping them get jobs after I left for the summer. I was doing a lot of fun stuff and good stuff that I felt was helping people and growing a business. And so I was just very excited to get out of school so I could do this kind of work. But being around this person that had this goal, grew up with, being around people at school that had this goal, it really did get me fired up because I thought, wow, if all these people are trying to do this, it must be a really good thing. And when I first learned about this, I was working hard in school, but I had maybe a B plus, 3.3, 3.5, or not great grades, but good for where I was at. But once I realized that I wanted to do this and the reasons for doing it, that what happened in terms of everything that you think about in terms of salaries and the prestige and the competition of going to these schools, I just decided that I wanted to prove to two people and myself that I could also get into the school. Now, keep in mind, I didn't choose going to University of Chicago, like where I was at. I didn't choose going to a great school. I didn't choose to the highest ranked school. I chose a school that other people around me seemed to be thinking was great and I was competitive with. I got very energized in this goal. So much so that I did things that to this day you may think are insane, but I did. I would take certain classes and I would call up the dean of admissions who I would ask about questions about classes and things. Is it okay to take it pass fail and stuff? And they were literally, this is crazy. You think about this. You're a college student, you're calling up a law school and you're asking them about certain classes and that you should take. And this dean was actually very amused that I was doing this. He said, "Who is this?" And I said, "I'm someone applying in a couple of years and a year." And then the assistant dean of admissions came to some sort of law school fair in downtown Chicago. And I sought him out and sat there talking to him about how much I liked the school and wanted to go there for a half hour. And I did the same thing with teachers that would be writing recommendations to me on the future that told them I wanted to go to this law school. And I took classes from people that had gone to, actually not college, but graduate school there and talked to them. What I did is I did everything in my power to establish a connection with a school that, frankly, I don't know how it works, but most schools just operate based on these number systems. And I decided that I was going to compete to do this. Now, this is, by the way, something that if I set a goal for something that I do in every area, I set it for BCG, I set it for everything, but I was able to create a desire to go there. I visited the guy that had gone there. He was now a third-year law student that my girlfriend had introduced me to. I spent a day there attending classes. I didn't get an invitation from the school. I wrote the school a letter telling them how much this is before acceptance letters went out, how much I enjoyed the classes. I dropped names of in the letter of students I met. Now, who's writing a letter to the dean of admissions that it's actually getting read because you've made a contact with them and you're getting something on their desk? I do this sort of thing too, by the way, with my candidates, to get attention from firms. But then my last year of college, what had happened, it's a long story, but I had gotten mono in my last year of college and was so laid down that I didn't get to take the LSATs till I believe February or March was the last date you could take them. And by the time I was applying to schools, especially schools enrolling admission, almost all the classes were filled. I took these LSATs late. The class, I'm assuming, was pretty close to full there. It was most of the places I applied to basically wrote back and said, "Our class is filled, apply next year, or we'll put you on a wait list and because our class is filled," and all this sort of thing. So I wrote this letter that was 10 pages, basically explaining why things were late, why I wanted to go to the school, why was very meaningful to me and so forth. And I don't know why the letter was so long, but it was pretty funny. There were other students working there and they laughed actually when I had to have a copy. I don't know what it was, maybe it's because I wanted a copy of, I don't know why, but they were smirking when they gave it to me and I could see them reading it when I was waiting for it. They were students from the school. But what I'd done, and I'm just telling you how this kind of works when you want something, is I've been able to create a big desire to go to that school. I've been able to try to get the attention of people. I've been able to learn about things, meet people, go to the school, talk to people, get people's attention, all this sort of stuff that hardly anyone does. And again, this is for a school that I was just decided I was going to compete to get into. That was it. Didn't really care about anything else. And then because I didn't think I was going to get into this law school or any law schools because of taking these LSATs so late, I decided that a backup plan was I was going to get a job in Washington, D.C. and live in Virginia so I could establish residency there to get into the school, even to have a really good shot at getting into school. Because at the time, if you're out of state, they only had, I don't know what it was, like 50 places for 10, I don't know, thousands of students applying or something if you're out of state. So I was like, I'll get in state and I'll make it even easier. This is another thing that people do with goals is they figure out other ways to achieve them. So even the idea of arranging your life and deciding where you're going to live to achieve the goal is something that I did. And so I did everything and possible to get into the school. I certainly didn't get whatever the average was back then of like a 98th percentile in my LSATs. I was sick and laid up. I did okay, but they were not what they should have been. I was out of state. I took the LSATs late, a bunch of things. But the point is that I set a goal, and you should do this when you set a goal. I'm just trying to let you understand. Now, this is a stupid example because I'm sure a lot of people watching this probably got into this law school. I'm not saying it's anything unusual to get into a law school, but what is unusual is setting the goal and getting the attention of people in a way that most people would never be able to achieve. Showing somebody you want something, showing somebody that you're very interested in something, showing someone why you like it, showing someone how you'd fit in, doing all these things, and then getting the right people's attention and so forth. This is how things happen when people make partners in law firms, or when they bring in clients, or they become nationally famous in a specialty. Like they figure out ways to make things happen, and they get some sort of motivation inside of them to make that happen based on whatever happens, to whatever the circumstances are, whatever they can do to make something happen. They rearrange their lives to accommodate that goal and make it as likely as possible that they can achieve it. And again, I'm not saying that going to this particular law school is some huge lifetime achievement, because certainly the school you go to is not really have very much to do with anybody's success in the practice of law. I talked to someone yesterday that was, I think, probably one of the most successful attorneys in all of Chicago, and didn't go to a law school. I went to a law school. I saw the person's law school and I was like, I hadn't even heard of this thing. So it just, you can achieve things when you really put your mind behind it. What is the power of setting obsessive goals? And the reason I'm really trying to make these points to you is that I want you to understand that any goal that you set, once you set it, you put everything you can behind it, and you're going to make it more likely than not that you're going to achieve it. I can't tell you how many stories of attorneys I've heard that have contacted me and told me that they did these certain things and this is why they achieved them. Or I talk to people that for the first time, that they have nothing to do with anything I teach, but they're very successful in all these different disciplines and things. And you're like, why? What is it that's making them so successful? What are they doing differently than other people? And you read the biographies of people like Elon Musk and other people, and they put everything they can behind things. Elon Musk, by the way, just a quick aside, would be save incredible amounts of money to make sure that everything he had went into his business. People that want something really put a lot into their goals. And this is what you need to do if you're going to be successful. You're never going to reach the pinnacle of what you're capable of doing unless you really want a goal and you have some passion behind that goal. You have to see every possible opportunity to achieve that goal. You have to make sure that you are the most logical choice in someone that wants it. And this is a goal that I had. I've certainly had goals of far more significance than something as shallow. I'm not saying in a negative way, but going to law school, a certain law school. But that's just an example of how you set goals. And I learned to do this, by the way. I'll just tell you real quickly. How did I learn how to set goals this way? I learned it from the book Think and Grow Rich. And then I also learned it from Tony Robbins. What did I do when I read Tony Robbins? I said, I'm going to one day meet this person, be friends with them, and get into business with them. And I set that as a goal when I was maybe 22, 21 after I read his book. And that's exactly what I did. I was able to do that. How can you even imagine something like that happen? And I'm not going to talk about it right now, but I did everything right to put myself in that position. In this particular instance, going to school, I certainly met a lot of nice people and had opportunities. I wouldn't be doing what I am today. I'd be maybe a contractor. This goal became an obsession. And without that, I probably wouldn't have gone to this school or frankly, any law school. You show people how much a goal means to you. You tell them that you do the best that you can, and you do everything you possibly can to really make something happen. Now, this is not a huge goal. I'm not talking about things like major things like becoming the president of a company or something. But this is a goal that when you show somebody how much a goal means to you, their natural instinct, especially with something like that, is to want to bring you in. And you have to, regardless of what you're trying to do, if you want to be a successful partner, if you want to be a judge, I knew a woman that became a federal district judge that had this goal when she was a freshman in freaking college. I don't know why she had this goal, but everything about her life and career was this goal. She worked as hard as she could. She took the right classes. She went to the right law school. She did something where she worked for the government when she got out, and she networked her way into that and became appointed by the president to be a federal district judge. Who who sets that kind of goal when you're a freshman in college? But if you do, those things happen, and you have to be obsessed and focused on whatever your goal is. And if your goal is in the legal profession, then you need to figure out how are you going to achieve that goal? What is going to make you the best at it? What is going to make that happen for you? How are you going to distinguish yourself in terms of others? What choices are you going to make? What choices are you not going to make? And this is really the only way that you can possibly reach the highest levels of the legal profession if you want to. And by the way, anybody can reach the highest levels of the legal profession. I remember, I'll just tell you a couple stories real quickly. And this is not necessarily, and I have stories about it, people becoming corporate attorneys and becoming incredibly successful, that it's all they ever wanted to do. And now they're the head of major law firms. And this is what they wanted to do, is be the best in that. I've met people that have done it in litigation that wanted to be the best and distinguish themselves and made all these choices. And I've met people who set goals and to be the best personal injury attorney and things. And they set this goal, and within a short period of time, they're on billboards and television commercials and doing very well. People always make fun of personal injury attorneys. I'll just give you an aside. Lawyers make fun of them. Partners in big firms make fun of them. But a couple of them I know, they have their own jets. They're on free time and the houses in Montana and all these, whatever your goals are, you can achieve them. And by the way, these personal injury attorneys are the same kind of people that would have gotten out of school and couldn't get jobs. No one would hire them. They had to figure out it on their own, and they set this goal to be successful and did it. A lot of them graduating the bottom of their class from 4-tier law schools. Whoever you are, you can set goals for yourself, and the legal profession do very well. And then you have to find a goal that you're interested in, that you believe you can achieve, and then you need to really desire it. You can't just say blankly, this is my goal, and not put anything behind it. You have to actually have a goal. And again, this may be, if you understand this message and you really buy into it and you think about your life and your goals and you really have a goal for yourself, this is all you need to do to be successful. You can continually have that goal. You can fail. You can learn from your failures. You can come back again. You can fail again and fail again, but then eventually reach the top. And the stories of Abraham Lincoln failing and not becoming successful until he was in his 40s. All these things happen to people with goals. Most people, by the way, with goals, they fail, and then they fail again, and then they fail. They keep that goal. And success definitely has a way of eluding people and only coming for people that really want it and keep trying. And it will test your faith. It will do all sorts of things. And it's very important to have goals and to stand for something. I obviously wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about goals and talking about this unless I had a passion for helping people get jobs. It's what my entire life is about. It's obviously I have other things that are important to me, my family and fitness and things, but this is something that motivates me. And I'll tell you a quick story about it and how you can develop goals. This is how I develop goals and have done things. So I had an office in Chicago several years ago. And at the time, we were a pretty small company that was maybe 6 or 7 recruiters, not people at the most. And I was also recruiting at the time, and I was enjoying it. I was motivated by helping people get jobs, by being able to see opportunities for them that others might have missed, that by becoming an advocate for them and shaping the way law firms saw them and how they were able to distinguish themselves. But it wasn't necessarily an all-consuming desire. It wasn't like, I'm going to try to get every attorney in the country a job and help everybody. I'm just doing this kind of one-off service to people. But there was this woman in Chicago that had been calling me because she saw how passionate I was about getting people jobs and just writing articles, and messaging of the company was just very strong in terms of wanting to do that. And so she kept calling me, asking her to help her and to meet with her and things. And I was just, this doesn't normally happen with people looking for jobs. Most people just submit their resume and wait to hear from someone, and that's it. So that's pretty much how it works. Most people don't call up and talk to recruiting firms and tell them how much they want a job. Most people don't do this sort of thing like this woman did. So obviously someone that does something like that is rare because not many people will reach out and try to call and get someone's attention. And I'm not suggesting, by the way, that everyone on this call do that, but I'm just suggesting that this is someone that was trying to put herself in a position to get a job. And she'd been an attorney at Motorola. I guess this was a company in Illinois that used to be very popular in phones. And she'd recently had all these tragedies happen to her. And you may have had tragedies too. So and everyone does, but I'm just letting you know what had happened to her husband. Had just died of a heart attack while he was playing tennis, and she was relatively young. Her son was handicapped and needed constant attention, and her mother was at home at her house, hooked up to all these respirators and things and dying and close near the end of her life. And then Motorola, the company she was working for, had recently done a series of downsizing, meaning they were letting lots of people go to save money, including the legal department, eliminate her job. She had burned through all of her savings and with the expense of taking care of her son who was handicapped and was just obviously in a very bad shape. I met her at the Sears Tower, which is across from our offices, for coffee. And sometimes when you see people and their faces, you can, even though they may be dressed well and stuff, you can see a lot of pain. And we talked for over an hour, and she repeatedly asked me what I could do to help her. And just keep in mind, at this point, I don't have a lot of experience recruiting. This is someone that's just reaching out. Can you help me? What can you do? And so at the time, she was in-house. It's very difficult to place attorneys from in-house into law firms. It's not impossible, but it's extremely difficult because law firms want to hire people that are committed to that practice setting. And it broke my heart. Why couldn't I help this person? Why, if I was dedicated to helping people get jobs, why couldn't I help people like this? And this was one of numerous stories like this that I heard where people, and you may feel like this, where people were at the end of the rope with their jobs, where they may have lost jobs, where they couldn't get a job, where maybe they were being blackballed in a certain market. Maybe they were fired and felt like they were at the end of the road. Maybe they were laid off. Maybe all of these things happened to them. And when that happened, I was very motivated. I would say, what can I do to help this person? I did everything I possibly could, because here was the opportunity to truly make a difference in someone's life and get them on track and believe in them when no one else would believe in them. I want to make a quick aside too about believing in people. Like, you need to also believe in yourself. You can never do that, but you also need to be around people, whether it's family or your spouse or coworkers or people that believe in you, because that's very important for you to be successful. You need people that believe in you. So you should always try to be around people that believe in you and don't not believe in you, because that's one of the most important things that we have. But the other thing that's interesting is attorneys that get a lot of business, a lot of times what they do is they get close to people working inside of companies in the legal department. And sometimes those people may lose their jobs or have something bad happen to them or trouble. And because they have these relationships, they believe in them and they try to help them, or they do things for them, or they look out for them somehow. Maybe sometimes they do that early in their careers where they're looking out for someone and believing in them and helping them. And a lot of times that stuff comes back to you. Like, a lot of times what happens in law firms, especially, is you view everyone you're working with as a competitor and you other associates. And so you try to undermine them or you play games. And some of those people that you're doing that with will become the heads of giant corporations that could send you business. So who do you believe in? Who are you getting behind? Who are you helping? And this is a very important thing, because if you believe in people, they're going to reciprocate. When candidates come to BCG and if they work in a law firm, I believe in them. I send them a lot of jobs. I do everything I can to get them a position. I don't give up on them. So you need people that are going to believe in you. And I really want to make that point. And not only that, but if you're going to be successful with other people, if you're going to make other people, if you want to be successful, the people that are going to make you successful are the people that believe in you. Think about what happens when a new president comes into office. They have the ability to appoint ambassadors and people into all these positions. And a lot of times they're the people that took a risk on them and gave them a lot of money. Those are the people a lot of times that work as ambassadors to different countries and in different roles. People reward people that believe in them, and believing in other people can change your life. So this was one example, and I've got many of candidates that I believed in that were essentially unemployable. But here was someone that wanted to work who I couldn't help at the time. And when it made me feel, as I still feel, that the profession of recruiting was not what I should be doing if I couldn't help everyone there. If you're a BCG candidate, that the way this company works now is we try to help people that are helpable. We're not just working with people from top law firms and top law schools. If you are committed to a practice area, then you are in a law firm environment, then you're someone obviously that I want to help. You have that experience, but you want to help people. And I also, when I heard this woman's story, I thought of my own mother, who is also widowed by her second husband. And then I thought of all the people who want to work but cannot. I see so many people that aren't working, and it's very sad because you go to law school, you try hard like I did to get into law school, you take the bar exam, you do all these things right, and yet the market, you don't feel like anyone is hiring you. No one's believing in you. You're not getting where you want. You're not feeling valued. You're not feeling like you're worthwhile. And so when I saw this with this woman, and I started seeing it with other people, I did everything I possibly could to start working with individual people and moving and seeing opportunities for them and moving them forward in every possible way that I could. How do you believe in people? How do you help people? How do you see opportunities for them that others don't? What do you do that's different? And how do you put people above you and above short-term goals? How do you actually be someone of substance and make a difference? And I was sitting with this woman, and she started crying, and for myself, just not breaking down into tears and hugging her, being actually moved emotionally. This is someone that I'm very upset for, that I relate to, that I really want to help and support. And so what I ended up doing in response to that is I realized that as a recruiter, representing this person by telling law firms they should hire them, this person was not something that was likely to work. And I'm not promoting these companies. One of them, by the way, I don't even operate anymore, but it was called Legal Authority. What it would do is it help attorneys basically mail their resume to every company that could possibly hire them did the kind of work they did in the city. And then I started a company called Law Crossing, which is still in existence, which goes out and finds every in-house law firm, every job they could possibly find from employer websites and local newspapers and bar associations and so forth, meaning putting other people first, doing everything I could to help people get jobs in a way that other people weren't. Law Crossing, by the way, was much different than sites like Indeed and things, because what it would do is when you look at jobs on Indeed and LinkedIn, they're showing jobs that employers are paying to advertise. And this was just finding jobs that the employers have in other places. But the point is that by doing this, I was able to get a lot of people jobs. I increased the size of the company. I kept it growing. At one point, it got to be over 850 people, and basically helping people get jobs in ways that no one else was doing. This is something that made a huge difference, obviously, in a lot of people's lives and helped them. And then anytime you become someone that does something unique, you become national in scope, I guess. There's people that really like you, and then there's people that don't. There's, in my particular business, and I'm not saying that it's to gain any form of sympathy or anything, but a lot of times recruiters are most motivated by making money and with the right people, meaning trying to find only certain candidates and then ignoring people that don't get traction and only working with certain types of people. And then if those people don't do well initially, avoiding them or moving on to the next one. This is just, recruiting tends to be a sales type position. And if you're a candidate of ours and we don't do that, we don't expect you to learn and things along the way, but this became an obsession. I do everything I can behind that goal. And I've had that same goal for decades now. And so how do you use all this stuff to have success in your career using these tools? What is it that you can do to become a better lawyer, to become a more successful lawyer, finding jobs and all this sort of stuff? And you getting a right job or advancing in a position or in a firm is not just about sitting down and doing the work or following instructions and all this sort of thing, or mindlessly just doing things in a way that is usual. You have to actually learn how to control your mind. You have to understand, what do you do to have the type of psychology necessary to reach these goals and to become the person you want to be? How do you minimize negative influences and maximize positive influences? How do you do all these things? And for me, I read daily about how to help people get jobs, things that they can do. I don't write about it daily anymore, but I used to. I write books, seminars, work on my own mind. And so getting people jobs is a huge obsession. It's not something that I take lightly. I'm not meandering and just not committing to a career, not committing to something. It's what I think about. And I do think about it all the time, 7 days a week. I'm thinking about it right now. I'm trying to help you get a job and then have a better career. But this is the thing. And this is what's important for you to understand. So most people in the world are what's called dabblers. And a dabbler is someone that is dabbling in the law, is dabbling in a practice area, is dabbling in, they start a new hobby, they'll dabble in it for a little while. But they just dabble in things and they never end up committing. And because they dabble, they never become the best of what they can be and the best they can do. But an example of a dabbler is, say you want to learn to play tennis. So you will go out and take some lessons and have some success, and you'll start a curve of getting better and better, but then you'll reach a plateau where if you're going to get a lot better, you're going to have to commit to it, and you will commit to it for a long time and start making incremental changes, incremental improvements. And then you will eventually, if you do this long enough, and you have the athletic skill, become a very good tennis player. It's the same thing with all sports. If you read about Michael Jordan or different basketball players or people that are very good in different sports, they commit to it, and they commit to it at a level that other people aren't. And it becomes a focus of theirs and all they think about. And then they become the best in the world at something. And this is what almost all the most successful athletes do. It's what the most successful musicians do. It's what the most successful actors and entertainers do. I'll tell you a quick story. I had, God, what is the name? Oh, Bradley Cooper. I used to have this home that was very nice, and it was over a kind of cliff in Malibu, and with a little path down to the beach. But I would rent it out to people, and the people invariably that would come out to it would be celebrities and things. And a lot of times you would see celebrities that were newer celebrities that were going to be successful later. And Bradley Cooper, who's an actor, came out, and at the time he'd been in a couple shows and movies and was well known, but nothing like he is today. And so he came and stayed there just for 2 or 3 nights. And then when he left this effusive note about thanking us for staying there. And then these couple bottles of, even though he was paying to stay there, a couple bottles of very expensive champagne. And wow, like, why would someone act like that? Like, such a gentleman and so nice. I'm telling the story about him right now, but think about if you do that, every person you meet, if you show gratitude, if you really want to be successful, if you do all these things, where does it end up going? Like, so that's an example of someone that probably had a very big goal and just wanted to develop a lot of good feelings around him and do things that way. And it worked. And now he's became a Maestro movie and things, and it's been very successful. So people that are successful at things do things like that. And same thing with setting goals to get people jobs. If you, in the legal profession, in law firms, and that kind of thing is empowering. I learn new things each and every day that bring people closer to getting jobs. And I sometimes get up at 3 and then 4, and I'm only trying to work on methods of getting people jobs and helping them. Now, this is just because I have that goal. It could be a goal to be the best, I don't know, runner or something for my age, or to be the best weightlifter or to write the most books or whatever. But you need to have goals, and you need to get obsessed with those goals, and you need to find something, by the way, where you can get behind those goals, and you need to have things that motivate you to achieve those goals, and you need to have reasons why you want to do something. You need to really get behind those goals, because this is what you're up against. You're up against people that have goals, and the people that have these goals will be the ones that succeed. They succeed and they do very well. And it happens. I remember I was with Tony Robbins and his wife and who else? I don't know. Maybe it was them, and maybe there was one other person with us. And he had a seminar that like one of these things where thousands of people show up and he gives inspirational talks. And he had one the next day, I think. And his goal has been to basically bring use God and the power of God to transform people and things like that. And he's very serious about that. And that's what basically, by the way, made him the person that he became. And so I remember, though, he was getting ready to get on a plane. We were getting on this plane where we were flying to Australia, I think from Fiji or something. And he was in this trance and just mumbling to himself, like how well he was going to do, how important it was, this was going to be the best one ever he did and stuff. And this is someone that has been doing that for decades. And there's no reason that he should think anything other than it's going to be great, but just constantly saying, this is my chance to help these people. This is my chance to do this. I'm going to give it everything I got. And I'm psyching myself up. I'm getting into a psychological state to make this happen. And this, by the way, is the same kind of thing that the best actors and actresses do. They study the character. They get very close to what the character is. They try to find who the character is, and where did they live, and how do they think, and what are all these sorts of things. So you have to do something like that. You have to be able to throw yourself into your practice area or what you do with a high level of enthusiasm. I remember several years ago talking to an attorney, and he had decided years ago that he was interested in this one kind of remote area of intellectual property law. Was something to do with data and privacy, which at the time wasn't like a big practice area, but he was very interested in it. He read everything he could, and he cut out articles and put them in files, and then continually thought about it and saw things from that perspective, and told himself he was going to be the best person in that practice area, even though it wasn't a big practice area at the time. Because of that, he became an authority on it, and was able to work on some of the most important cases in the country because that became his obsession. He was able to meet the right people in government and in all these different places because of that. And so I'm not saying that there's anything unusual about any of these goals, but having these goals, you have to have something behind them. This is just a week or two ago, I met a guy that he has started a company that is 2 years old, that has over $1 billion valuation. The company, essentially, what they do is they take all the data, the private, most 98% of all personal injury cases, for example, settle, but that settlement data you never know about it. The only stuff you know about is what the verdicts and what those are. So he started this company. I went to a talk with him. It was pretty exciting. It was just me and a couple other people, and he talked for an hour and a half about this. But he basically shows attorneys the private settlement data, so they know how much insurance companies have paid for various claims, and then how much those claims are worth. That's his niche. But the reason, and he imagined starting a company 2 years ago worth over $1 billion that you own 70% of. So making effectively $700 million in 2 years. How do you do that? What is the motivation that makes it happen? He grew up in a family. They were immigrants from another country, and his father was injured or killed in a motorcycle accident when he was, actually, no, he wasn't. He was permanently disabled in a motorcycle accident based on someone else's fault. And the case had been worth $50 million or something, but they settled for only a few $100,000. And the father never had the money to live for the rest of his life. He became infuriated with that. And his single obsession became making sure that people didn't have the same results that his father had because of lack of information about what claims are made. Just think about that. Think about having that kind of goal. Think about what can happen to people when they have that goal. Think about what's happened to me. Like, all these things happen when you're obsessed and you have a motivation to achieve something. And you can't achieve something if you're, and this is the biggest problem, I think, in the legal profession, and that prevents attorneys from having success. Every year around this time, law firms have given bonuses. And every year when I talk to partners and firms, there are always a lot of people that are upset with their bonuses, that don't feel good about their bonuses, that make the partners feel badly about the bonuses, that don't appreciate the bonuses. And all that does is ultimately it makes the partners unhappy. It doesn't help you. So if you have a goal of being a partner or a bride or whatever, then you do things that will make you feel like you're on the same team as the firm you're at, that will make you set apart, that will make people see how much you desire to do well and improve. And these are the characteristics that most attorneys, more than 50% in law firms, often do not have. They're complainers. They listen to complainers, or they allow others to make themselves feel negative about the firm. They listen to negativity and they fall into it instead of having a goal to do something meaningful. In our recruiting firm, it's interesting. We've had lots and lots of recruiters having worked here, and what happens in recruiting firms, just as it happens in law firms, is people, they get negative and they lose sight of a goal, and that's just how it works. Or they don't have goals. They don't have goals to do very well. One of the most successful recruiters in the history of our company was someone that had lost a position in a law firm and was in a practice area that was very difficult to get a position in, and couldn't get a job. And I hired them, and they said, I'm going to come here and I'm going to just give it my all. I'm going to do whatever this person tells me to do and learn about it and become committed and all that sort of thing. And this person works here, but a very successful career. And this is what people do that become successful. They get behind some sort of goal and they just don't look back. It's the old analogy of when someone is going to war, and I don't know exactly where this is, but they burn, when they get to the destination, they have 500 people to fight 3,000, and they burn the ships because they know that there's no way of retreat. The idea is you have to have an all-consuming desire for whatever you're trying to do. And it doesn't have to be practicing law or working in a law firm. It could be being a judge. It could be starting a business that has nothing to do with the law, but you need to really have some sort of desire that moves you and that is very important to you. And what's interesting is a lot of people will come out of school and they'll say, oh, I'm so smart. I went to this great law school. I did so well. The world should open up to me and I should be given very important work, and all this things should happen. And because of that attitude, those things actually often don't happen because there's no massive desire to achieve some sort of goal. And you need that if you're going to achieve anything. I just can't emphasize enough that every single thing that you do in your career will tell people around you if you have a goal and how seriously you are about that goal, how likely you are to how much you have this goal compared to other people. And if you have goals, and it will show in everything you do. Your decisions will be based on goals. So what you do socially and with your firm and also with other people will be about those goals. The connections you make, how hard you work, the things, the people that you associate with, all these things will have meaning and will come together if you have those goals. And if you don't have those goals, none of that will. So this is very powerful if you understand all this, because if you understand it, you actually can do anything you want to do. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what's happened to your life until now. None of that matters. If you really want to do something, you'll do it and you'll get it done, but it has to be a very powerful goal for you. And you have to learn how to get yourself in a situation where you believe in something. And if you're able to do that, then your career is never going to be the same. Your life will never be the same. If you look at in all neighborhoods, you can drive down and there's cities, there's places with the big houses and there's places with the small houses and there's places with the apartments and all that sort of thing. But if you, most of the time, not always, but if you drive down a street or drive into an area and you see the biggest houses, those are typically, now this is not the most important thing, but those are typically people with the biggest goals and they got behind something. It could be something as stupid as making the best car man. I don't know, but just something that they got behind and made a goal and made an obsession, just everyone that succeeds. So you need to figure out what your goals are for your career and really get behind them and make sure that you do that. Because if you do that, you will see the world in a way that those goals are going to happen. And not only that, but you will make decisions and things based on those goals, and it will really change the course of your life. So it's very powerful stuff. And it's not something that almost no one does, but the people that do it are the ones that succeed. And just as a kind of a final point, I talk to people every week about different things, and they say, oh, I made these decisions. I listened to these webinars, or I read these articles or watched these videos or whatever, and that you did, and it helped me. But most of those things that they say will help them maybe get jobs or keep jobs. But what do you do to actually change the whole direction of your career? Not just get jobs, but be someone that law firms, for example, law firms pay people. Law firms are basically places that partners that are successful take their clients and rely on them getting associates and having libraries and IT pay systems and secretaries. So the law partners, a law firm actually works for a partner with business. So would you rather be someone that's employing the law firm and choosing the law firm, or someone working in the law firm? Because this is what happens to most people. Most people are people that decide, oh, I want to work in a law firm. I'm smart. The law firm should give me this and that. If you want to work for a law firm, that's what you're always going to do. You're going to be dependent on the law firm. The law firm's not going to work for you. So do you have a goal of hiring a law firm to help you support your clients, or do you have a goal of spending your career trying to get positions in law firms? Think about this. This is very important, because you can spend your entire life and your entire career bouncing around between firms that will hire you based on your ability to do work, or you can spend your career bouncing around between firms because they're not giving you and your clients good enough service. So think about this. This is the choice that you face. And I will tell you that the substantial amount of people choose to work for the law firm. That's what they do. Even partners, they make partner and they may not have a lot of business, or this is what they do. Do you want to be someone that lends money to others or borrows? Do you want to be someone that is where people are relying on you, looking up to you, and you don't have to look up to others? And these are all decisions that you need to make, but they're only going to happen if you're able to choose a direction and you're going to choose something for your career. And it's just a final point. For the past, as long as I can remember, there have been, since the internet came out, there have been all these forces of negativity that permeate law firms. They've always had these kind of, I own one, top law schools, where people go and talk about firms and negative things and compare themselves to others and all this sort of thing. There used to be things like called greedy associates. There's Above the Law, where you can go and read things that are negative and things, and where people do that. And so you have the decision that you can be part of the problem, meaning you're getting all this negative information and sometimes contributing it to it by writing on blogs and things, or you can be part of the solution. It was interesting. I was talking to a very successful partner at a law firm, and this isn't a dig on this publication, but he was talking about, they have this technology that if you go on to different websites, it reports where you're at. So you definitely, and where they can look at everything the associates are doing online and so forth. And so obviously if you're looking at your Gmail all day, they can see that. But they also did this thing where they were looking at associates that were looking at above the law, for example. And that's just a lot of, and they said that no one that really spends any time on that side has ever made partner. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case with that, but it's when you surround yourself and you get on the side of negativity and things in your law firm, it's going to change how you think and you show and all these things. So you want to be in a position where you're being supportive and not the opposite. And you want to be in a position where you have goals and where you're not part of other people's goals. Because I just want to go back to this role of being a partner as opposed to an associate. If you're an associate, your role is just to do work for partners and be in service of their goals, which may be having the largest book of business or being the expert in this field. So you're just being of service to their goals. If you become a senior associate, it's the same thing. If you become a counsel, it's the same thing. You're just in service of other people's goals. If you look at the history of Quinn Emanuel or firms that have become very successful, people are just going there to be service to their goals. And many times you will outlast your usefulness if you don't have goals. You will become senior. Won't be able to they won't be work anymore. You're never set yourself apart by getting business or becoming, and then you will be gone and they will bring in other people to service their goals. This whole thing is very important for your happiness and your success and your ability to really have a great career. And if you don't do these things well, then you will spend the rest of your life in your career with the type of insecurity that attorneys without business have. They go to work in-house, they lose jobs, they have periods of unemployment, they have insecurity and whether or not they can afford to pay things. They have insecurity with whether or not they're going to be employed. They have insecurity about the market. They have all this sorts of stuff. And this is the problem of being a lawyer. And it's very hard. You can go the safe route and maybe become a professor and do that. I'm not saying that's the only safe route. You can go to work for the government and but everybody is seeking safety and success. And so you need to really do your best to rise above that, because the whole point of this talk is that if you're able to have a goal for yourself to do something that's going to benefit you, your family, your self-esteem, all those sorts of things, if you're able to have that goal and make that an obsession, then your whole life is going to change. Your whole career is going to change. The way people treat you is going to change. Everything is going to change. And so that's really my biggest piece of advice to you, is to make sure that you have something in your career that you're very excited about, that you want to do. And I don't care what it is. It could be that you want to be, the best writer in your firm. I don't know, but you have something that you get behind and you make your obsession, and it doesn't, and no one else is doing this. And this is very few people are doing this. And that's really what you need to do. You need to go all out and really get something that you believe in, because again, you have a choice. You can be insecure and working for someone else and worried about your job and worried about the economy and bouncing around and living your life like that, or you can take control and have a goal to, if you're a partner now, you can decide you want to be the one with the most business. I don't care what it is, you need to be able to do that. And then you will have, a very important career, whatever it is. And again, I don't care what it is. It could be, you want to serve the poor in the inner city of Portland. It doesn't have, and then you can be the best at that and get behind that. But you have to have something that you get behind. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break just for a minute or two. And then when I come back, I will answer questions. Just so everyone understands, the questions do not need to be about this webinar or this topic. They can be really about anything you have questions about related to your career. Questions that you think are dumb are usually the best. Questions that you're afraid to ask are usually the best questions. And I always take as much time as necessary to answer all the questions. So I will usually I can answer every question that you have. The other thing that's important is the legal profession is very interesting. I think that you're taught as an attorney to never show weakness and all these sorts of things. And so people are always nervous about asking questions, and people know who they are. If you are logged into Zoom, I will cut and paste the questions without showing your name. So no one's name is going to get shown or anything like that. And if the question, you say you're at a certain firm doing that, no one will know who you are when you ask questions. The most better questions you ask, about your career, the better. And again, most of your questions will help a lot of people that are on this webinar. This is Harrison Barnes, going to talk about the state of the legal market. Okay, this is a good question, the first one. So it says, I've observed that some attorneys I work with have aspirations, but they often get sidetracked by daily responsibilities. How can one effectively balance their professional obligations with a desire to achieve those goals? Okay, so that's a good question. And this is what happens to most attorneys. So most attorneys will get into a law firm and will just basically start doing nothing but working, and will hope that working hard and committing themselves will lead to success. So that is a good goal. That's something that can work. So people believe working hard will give results, and that's true to some extent. It can make a difference, but in most cases, everyone can work hard. So you need to distinguish yourself in some way. And how do you distinguish yourself? Maybe you can distinguish yourself through, and you need to figure out a way to really use what you have, how to distinguish yourself. So you can distinguish yourself by relationships. I ran across a resume of someone, this is just yesterday or the day before, someone that I used to practice laws with that had gone to Princeton and then Stanford Law School and was extremely intelligent. Meaning when I would encounter this person, the way they would see things was in far more depth than me personally, that I could see and that most people could see. But this person ended up becoming counsel in this law firm and worked very hard. And then there was another person at the same time that I knew that did become a partner, that was not as smart by any stretch of the imagination and not as hardworking. And that person was an expert in the relationships, got to know the right people, ended up because they prioritized that. So advancing can make things, the relationships can do it. Being very good at some niche that other people are not can be good. That can help. But you need, or getting business and prioritizing that can help. So these are things that people do that enables them to be successful. They figure out how to distinguish themselves, and they do it using their strengths. So maybe your strength is forming good relationships with the right people. That can be helpful. Maybe your strength is having some niche, or maybe your strength is getting business. But one of the things that I would say is that what smart people do, and this is often the smartest thing you can possibly do, is you find an environment where you believe it can be successful. So you may be at this giant firm that requires you to bill 3,000 hours a year, where everyone's doing that and nothing's happening to those people. No one is ever making partner. But maybe you're in a branch office where no one's ever made partner, or maybe who knows? But you need to find an environment where you can get the results you want, and the environment that's going to advance you. And the only way of doing that is if you have goals. So if you have goals, you're going to know the type of environment that's going to make that happen. That's pretty much it. So you'll find a place where you feel your goals are going to be supported, and you will investigate firms and things where that's likely to be. Okay. So I hope that helps. If you have a follow-up question, that's fine. But really, you have to figure out how to distinguish yourself if you have goals, and you will actually end up doing. Okay. So let me see here. I relate to your story a lot. Too, as a person to UVA, even thought it was an incredible school, even though it had certain things working against me. I put everything into it and got a UVA law. Awesome. Since then, I've had several setbacks. I did not get a summer big law job. I worked at a small law firm, lost my position, then worked in a new national firm and lost the position again from a branch office. I've been searching for a job for almost 3 months and have no interviews, and feel that I'm a huge obstacle. Should I stick with my law firm search, and how can you get a new job? Okay, so you need to set a goal, and your goal could be to, I don't know what your goal is, but you need a goal. You need a goal to be a certain type of person in your practice area, location, or whatever, and make that a desire. If you have that as the desire and visualize it and all that sort of, so that's what you need to do. And then you need to read your goal to yourself. I'm sorry to read your goal to yourself each day, and then spend a few minutes. This is what people do, by the way, to become extremely successful. I'm just telling you the way that people do it. Spend a few minutes visualizing that goal, visualizing what you can do to achieve goal. That's pretty much what it looks like when you do it, when you achieve it. So this may sound simplistic, but this is really what people do that achieve goals. So you need to really think about it. Now, what I would say, there's these things that happen to you. So let's talk about that the things that happened to you when you were, after losing your job, not getting a job at a big firm is in the summer. The only reason you feel badly about that is because we're around people that were doing that. So what do? You get angry and tell yourself you're going to get even better jobs than the people that got jobs. You're going to visualize it. You're going to get mad. You're going to think about it. You're not going to get sidetracked. You're going to be very angry about it and believe that you can get doing better. Now, this is a very common problem. And by the way, this kind of thing happens to people from lots of law schools. It happens every year that there's always people at Stanford, at Yale, at Harvard, lots of them, because it's a big school, that don't get some big law jobs. And then they work in small law firms and lose their position. And why do you lose your position in a small firm? People from large law schools, from the best law schools, typically lose their position because they don't appreciate and work hard, learn, and work as hard as possible for the people that gave them a chance. So I'll tell you a quick story. So this is a long time ago, so I'm not really giving away anybody's identity, but there was this rabbi that I knew quite well and actually performed our wedding with my last wife. And he came to me and said, I have this person that is graduated from a top 10 or 5 law school that I know that's friends with my son. And he did well in law school, but he is so young because I think he'd gone to law school at the age of 19 because he was a savant, that no one will hire him. Would you see if you could help him? So I did. I ended up hiring him, and he was angry that he wasn't working in a big firm. And so he would leave early and basically say, I have this job, but it doesn't pay as much. So I'm going to leave early and not work as hard. And then he was in the office one day and he'd gone to the human resources director and was complaining that the salaries of the big firms, the starting salaries had just gone up. I think they'd gone from like $80,000 to $120,000 overnight. And he was making so much less than people from his law school, and he deserved a raise. And I gave him a raise, but to what they were paying in big law firms, even though his job wasn't in the big law firms or a smaller company. It wasn't not small, but company. And then he still acted like the work was unimportant, left early and felt that he wasn't as good of a job, even though I'd helped him. So eventually what happened, but the economy slowed down or something, or I was angry that he wasn't appreciative and ended up parting ways with him. And which was very hard for him because then he tried and no one would hire him. He was in the same position that hadn't worked for me very long. So what happens is if you don't get the best job you can, you should never go into a smaller firm or a firm that you think is beneath you and not give it everything you have. You need to basically say, these people gave me a job. I need to commit and I need to show them how hard I'm willing to work, how important this job is to me, how grateful I am for this opportunity, how much I'm going to learn from it, how well I'm going to do, how I want them to remember me and talk about me years or decades from now as someone that really tried hard. So I remember talking to an attorney, and I don't know where this person was, but someone that had gone to a top law school, then had not gotten a summer job like you, and then even they got a summer job, but even the summer job they got, I didn't make them an offer. And then they came out and were mad they didn't get a summer job, didn't commit, and took the bar and failed it. And then eventually got a job, meaning this person from a top 10 law school spent some time passing and eventually passing the bar. And then not only that, the first job they got was, of course, at a small law firm that they believed was far beneath what they were capable of getting. And they were angry, of course, that people in their school didn't get it. But what this person did, and I don't know, I think this person had some religious epiphany after studying Christianity or some priest or some, I don't know what is there, someone that helped them. They decided that they were going to go into this position and do absolutely everything they could to be the best at it and give it everything that they had. And what happened is after 1 or 2 years, they were the best, not only were they best like associate, but they were more productive and having a better understanding of matters and having people respect them as much as they were respecting partners without trying to take all the credit for things. And they were in a role where they hadn't done well. And so when they eventually left, they left the firm because they literally outgrown it. And because they put so much into doing their best there. So they didn't look at working as a small firm. They look at it as an opportunity to grow and see what it's like at small firms and then appreciate more and more the fact that they were in this position and they were going to learn from it. So this is something, by the way, any religious text, whether it's Christianity or Mormons, they all have these stories of people that came up against odds and they failed again. And then, or they had faith that they were going to get pregnant at the age of 100, or faith that they were going to recover some plates, or golden plates. And so they have faith and they just keep pushing forward as long as they have faith. And then people lose when they stop having faith. So the idea of this, and this is a very common question, which is why I'm spending so much time on it, that if you are in this position and these things are happening, you need to, wherever you go, you need to appreciate it and you need to learn from it. And then this worked at the national firm and lost your position. There's something happening to you. You may not be working enough, may not be working hard. You may not be respecting the people that helped you. You may be socializing and spending time with people that are negative and all these things. You may be, sometimes again, firms monitor emails, maybe sending emails complaining or whatever negative about the firm. I don't know, but whatever. You may be doing something that's showing you're not part of the team. And if you do that, people are going to come down on you very quickly. If you act like you don't appreciate stuff, people are going to come down on you very quickly. So you need to, and if you think you're better than people because of where you went to law school, people are going to come down on you very quickly. So this is a very common thing that happens. Like people that go to good law school. I was with this guy not too long ago, and he got to Harvard Law School and did the same thing. He worked in some kind of strange state government office for a year or two when he got out of school, and then expected firms to open the doors to him, and they wouldn't, because he'd never been a summer associate. He'd never worked in a law firm, but eventually I got him a job with a national firm, but one that didn't have any Harvard Law School graduates in it. And the frickin' guy almost didn't take the job because even though he hadn't done anything to set himself up for a law firm job, thought he was better because he went to law school, not even understanding that people that were giving him this opportunity were people that had committed to the practice of law, had gotten business and all this stuff. So if you're not getting a job after 3 months and having no interviews, I don't think that it has really anything to do necessarily with you. I think you need to be able to, wherever you are, you need to be able to find places that are willing to hire you. An example would be if you were, I don't know what city you could say you're in, but maybe you're in, I don't know, I'm just giving you an example of a city. I'm tired, but Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, and I don't know what practice area you're in, litigation, law firms. If you are really interested in working in Memphis, if you're in Memphis, you would be contacting all of these attorneys, asking them for if you could have an interview, or you could give an informational interview and talk to them a little bit about it. You would try to find people that work in Anderson Krupp and maybe get relationships or talk to them. You would look at these people. You would look at these firms on BCG. You would do all this stuff. And then what's cool is that sometimes there's all these lists here. You would contact people on here and ask them for things. Ask people at small firms if you can do work for them and help them. Just do whatever you can to get back on track, keeping in mind that that, I don't know if you want to work with this guy, facial hairs. Well, that's definitely affirming. Look at that. I don't know if I'd want to work in this guy's house, but anyways, but you would work on doing whatever you could to position yourself and find people that are going to hire you. Because if you do that, things are going to all come into place. And then I think the big thing that's important is just to understand that if you really want something, you'll figure out how to get it. And if you don't, you will. So having early setbacks in your career, which frankly, most people have, most attorneys get fired. Most attorneys have a hard time finding summer jobs. Most attorneys have a hard time finding their first job. Most attorneys have a hard time when they start in law firms, learning the ropes. These are all normal things. But if you have a desire to do really well and to get over this, you will learn all these lessons. And here's the first thing I would say that's just really pretty stupid. And I bring this up every call. So I'm assuming maybe you're 27 years old. What does that mean? If you're 27, you will be, most attorneys practice well into their 70s. You have 50 years if you want to. I interviewed someone yesterday that was to be a recruiter that had 70 years old. They're very busy. We have 50 years of practice being a lawyer left, right? You have a lot of time. So why would you give up at 27 when you have 50 more years? Don't you think you're going to be a different person when, let's say, 54 years, and when 2 of your lifetimes have passed just because you had some bumps starting? That's incredible. Why would you give up so early in your career because of a few negative things? These are all just learning lessons. You'll look back 10 years from now and you may realize why you why you didn't get a summer job, what you were doing wrong. But you may look back 10 years from now and understand why the small law firm let you go, or what happened, or maybe they didn't have enough work. I don't know. And you may look back 10 years from now and understand why you lost your job in this branch office. All of these things are things that, frankly, ultimately 1, 2, 3 are probably at least one of them is something that you could have done differently the next time. So you just learn from your lesson. But all of these things are learning experiences. I just want to be clear to everyone on this webinar that every religious tradition talks about, almost everyone, about people coming up against obstacles and then being defeated and then trying again. And so this is all just normal. This is part of growing and things like that. So it's not something that I would worry too much about in the long run. Okay, so this person says, I recently switched practice areas and it feels like I'm starting from scratch with new goals. How can I approach this transition and set obsessive goals that are aligned with my evolving career path? Okay, so this is an interesting question. I actually sent an email to a bunch of people in our company yesterday, because a lot of times attorneys will come to me and they will say, hey, I'm a litigator, but I want to be a corporate attorney. And my answer to that always has been, no, I can't help you. Why would a law firm hire me to find someone that doesn't work in the practice area they're currently doing? Are you crazy? Like, why would a law firm do that? And sure enough, I remember I was working with this one guy or a couple people, and they come and they're like first in their class at some freaking great law school or top 25 law school, first in their class. And they're doing litigation. They want to be corporate, and so I've tried to represent them, and no one is interested, because they would be more interested in someone from the same firm that was in the top 50% of their class in doing that practice area. So no one is interested from a recruiter standpoint, when someone is trying to switch practice areas. The other thing that often happens when people switch practice areas is they end up leaving the practice of law, because the practice of law in most practice areas are very similar. I mean, people come out of, for example, Yale Law School every year. They may have majored in the classics or something, and I don't know, Princeton, and learned to speak Greek and all these things, and wrote papers, and they read Latin, and then they become corporate securities lawyers, and which doesn't seem, you would think they would be litigators or appellate, but these don't seem compatible. Most attorneys, when they get into a practice area, will commit to it. There's certain practice areas that sometimes people try to get out. So people might be an insurance defense attorney and they want to do commercial litigation, or people might be patent attorney and want to do intellectual property litigation. Some of these practice area things aren't really practice area switch, but a real practice area switch is when most switches involve switching between transactional and non-transactional practices. So what does that mean? That just means that you're doing real estate law and then you want to do litigation, or you're doing corporate law and you want to do employment law. But those are big switches. So when you're switching practice areas, you have to really have very concrete, you need a reason why. And it needs to be something that motivates you and that you can communicate to law firms. In most cases, if you select a new practice area, most attorneys need to move down, need to move to less prestigious firms that are going to take a risk on them before they move to more prestigious. So if you're at like an Am Law 100 law firm and you want to move to another Am Law 100 law firm doing a different practice area, you may be able to move to a less prestigious 100 law firm. But in most cases, the way that people do that is they will move to firms that aren't as good, that do that practice area, they'll get the training, and then they will often move later when they get better. Some attorneys, I've seen attorneys move to smaller markets. So someone I know was working as a patent attorney at a big firm in, Palo Alto, and they wanted to become an environmental attorney. So they ended up eventually getting a position in Sacramento, which is definitely not Palo Alto in terms of it's not as nice, not as big of a market. In a smaller firm, they're doing environmental work. So you can make these moves, but you need to have some sort of motivation for doing that. I know someone that became a trademark attorney, and the reason they did that was because their father there was a big trademark lawsuit against him, and he had been sued and for violating someone else's trademark and had lost everything. The family moved from a big, nice house to an apartment and destroyed a lot of the fabric of the family. So people many times when they switch practice areas have very strong motivations for reasons for moving and doing that. And then you have to, if you're going to have a goal, it has to be something that motivates you tremendously. And you have to have passion and reasons why behind you that other people don't necessarily have. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to grab some. I wanted to also just make a quick observation about practice areas and about committing to a practice area and doing something related to a certain practice area that you're doing. What's very interesting is when people apply or send the resume to BCG, and I look at the resume. So after 25 years of looking at resumes, I know the kind of people that are going to be able to get jobs in law firms. And it's really not that difficult to be represented by a recruiter if you do, or our firm, if you do certain things. Doesn't matter where you went to law school. It doesn't matter how you did in law school. It doesn't matter the quality of firm you're at. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're a law firm and we're not going to send you to, if you're not qualified to the best law firms and piss them off, but we'll send you to firms that are similar and so forth, or maybe a little bit better, and you can move up. The only thing that distinguishes attorneys and law firms in the market is a commitment to a practice area. So all law firms, 90% of them, or 95% are seeking a specialist. They want someone committed to, sorry, I received the question. So all of them are. So that's all they care about. They want specialists. They don't want people that are doing 2 practice areas or 3 practice areas. They don't want people that take their resumes and list the fact that they did real estate transactions, they did some technology or tech transactions, and then some corporate law and a little bit of litigation. These people never get jobs. I mean, at least the law firms have no incentive to hire them. They only need specialists. Specialists are law firm clients hire specialists because they want people that understand the practice area the most. So the most important thing anyone can do for their career, their legal career, and this alone could change the direction of your career if you understand it, is to really become a specialist in something. If you're a specialist in something, then law firms will hire you. It doesn't matter what it is. I was working on a search not too long ago. There was this firm and they were paying people that were lemon law plaintiffs' attorneys. They were paying people with more than 5 years of experience $300,000 a year, but they were committed to this one practice area, suing car makers for cars that break down a lot. It's for individuals. So it doesn't matter what your practice area is, but if you're committed to it, then you are going to be employable most of the time, whatever the practice area is. Some people commit to one little aspect of trust in estates. Other people, it doesn't matter. But if you're committed to a practice area, this is what law firms are seeking. And law firm clients are also seeking specialists. So if you're committed to something, then that's better. So you need to be committed to a practice area. And these are the people. So when people apply to BCG, if their resume is like all over the place, we can't help them. If they're working not in a law firm and practice setting, then we can't help them. You have to be committed to a law firm, a practice, and a practice setting. And this is what clients want. This is what people want. And the reason this helps you is because the more you look at something and do it, the more you see. And that's very important. So the more you study something, the more you see. A lot of people, when they get out of law school, they're like, hey, I spent all this time, I'm done learning. And this is what a lot of people think. And so if you look at something and you keep doing it and you commit to it, then people are going to pick up how committed you are to something and want to hire you and want to do business with you. If you were, an example would be if you had some rare neurological disorder that originated maybe, some part of your heart. I don't know, and they could fix it, but it had to be someone that was a very specialized. There are attorneys, doctors that have specialists and things like that. I know one doctor that does some certain type of operation. I don't know what it is exactly, but he charges like $250,000 for it. And people come to him from all over the world, and he does a couple of these operations a week. So you have to have some sort of commitment. These are the kind of people, if you had a problem legally or you had a problem with your health, you would want to find someone who's a specialist. So it does you no good if you want, but it generally does good to dabble in different practice settings or practice areas, practice settings. If you want to work in a law firm, you should commit to that practice setting. If you want to be in a practice, if you commit to a practice area, it's going to help your career tremendously, as opposed to dabbling between different things, because then you stand for something and you're going to make yourself rare, and no one else is going to have the same level of skill you do. When you get out of law school, all people are looking at are your grades and how you compare to others. But once you develop a specialty in a practice area, you're only competing with the other people that have that. And if you're the best, you're going to do very well, or the most committed. Okay, on my goal of working in a big law firm, I faced repeated setbacks despite attending a top law school. And I did not get a big summer job with lost positions, summer law firms. My career is a standstill and cannot get interviews at smaller firms, let alone a big firm. I feel extremely angered, discouraged, and don't know if I'm barking up the wrong tree. What do you suggest? Okay, this is very similar to the question I just answered. The idea is you write out a goal, whatever it is you want, and you read it each day, but visualize being small and do something towards that goal. What does that look like? You can call people, you can send messages, you can refine your messaging, you can get rejected and learn more ways to do it. You can approach different people. I just want everyone to understand how many let me just see if I pull this up here in a second. I don't know what we're doing here. How many opportunities there are in the market, any market that you're interested in. And I'm just showing you any type of firm, you can always get jobs, trust in estates, law firms in Omaha, Nebraska. It doesn't matter where you are. Look at this guy. It doesn't. Every single area of the country has lots of lawyers doing different things in your practice area. There's tons of them. So you really should not feel like you're not succeeding. You should be contacting everyone that you possibly can. The best people to contact are where you grew up, meaning you want connections where you're at, where you are in demand, meaning many times smaller markets. So what does that mean? The problem is I see all the time, like people that, for example, went to Harvard Law School and Harvard's just a big law school and had these sort of setbacks and are in New York City and can't get interviews or a job and are working as contract attorneys or working in firms doing insurance defense, or because they've had these setbacks and they are in these markets. The problem with markets with Los Angeles and New York and Chicago is that there are so many attorneys chomping at the bit that having anything negative in your background is just going to make it incredibly difficult for you to get a new position. Is it in your best interest to try to compete in these large markets so you can go to smaller firms there? But if you go out to smaller markets, you're always you'll get interviews and you will, because there's just not a lot of people trying to work there. I remember a couple of times in my career, I've gotten these calls from attorneys in very rural parts of the country where there's one courthouse within 60 miles or something that need people to take over their practice because there's no one around that does the work. I've run into people like that. But so when you go, the more rural area or smaller area you go into, the better off you're going to do. I've had multiple cases of attorneys where bad things have happened to them in large law firms, and they're sitting in a major city and they can't get an interview. And then they start applying, or I help them apply to smaller markets where there's not a lot of people that have their kind of experience or went to their kind of schools. And they all always get jobs that way. So you don't have to, and no one needs to worry about getting a job. You have to just contact people and enough people, and you have to prioritize it. It's crazy that people don't push hard enough to find things. If you want something, you're going to find it. This is what every successful person does. They figure out how to get it done. You just need to figure it out. And if you make it important enough, then you're going to be able to do it. Okay. All right. Like this. Thank you so much. Did I go at A to get me started for the new year? That's nice. Thanks. Okay. Let's see. I'm a solo practitioner. It can be challenging to stay disciplined and focused on my goals about the structure of a law firm. What advice do you have for attorneys like me to stay driven to achieve our objectives? Okay. So it depends on what practice you're in, what practice area. What's nice is there's all sorts of support groups and training courses, and support training courses, communities and things for people in different practice areas. So there's ones for personal injury law, there's ones for trust and estates, there's ones for tax controversies. Every practice area has something like that. And you can join those groups and get feedback and learn how to do different things and get inspired that way. Some of the best, and I need to do it a lot more, some of the most learning experiences I've had have been when you go outside and instead of you being the one trying to educate yourself, you learn from other people and that keeps you driven. You go back to those things over and over again. And there's people that religiously do that. There's also some business groups that are fun to join. There's something called, Vistage, which is the kind of a program that people join where they go to meetings and et cetera, meetings and all that sort of thing. And they with other business owners and discuss their challenges and that set goals. There's Vistage, EO, which I think is an entrepreneurs organization. So there's all these different, things you can do to get inspired and to work with people. But there's communities for personal injury, employment. There's associations within bar associations with that. So that's what I would recommend doing. And then having goals is just, you may say, I'm going to bring in this many clients, or I'm going to do this or that. And you have to start those and follow through on them yourself. Sometimes people need to be in an office to do that. They get an office. It really depends on you and what the way you want to do that. But everybody should be doing these things to do that. And then the other thing too is just you can go to listen to inspirational speakers. There's people like there's lots of people. Brian Tracy is pretty good. You can just listen to people like that. He has a goal setting workshop. So you find goals. Sometimes another thing that a lot of people do is they get coaches, and even attorneys and law firms do that. They may charge a couple $100 an hour, et cetera. It's not that much, but the coaches keep them accountable. Most, by the way, even the most successful people, even Bill Clinton, when he was president, used Tony Robbins, of course. So different people will do things a different way. Okay. It's a very great presentation, very inspiring. What advice would you give someone who lost passion due to negative feedback received from employers and a lack of perspective? Okay. So everybody receives negative feedback. I certainly have received negative feedback from journalists and other people. Every successful person has received negative feedback. Almost every attorney gets fired at some point in their career. That's negative feedback. Or laid off. Almost every attorney, negative feedback. So you have two choices with negative feedback. You can use it, you can get depressed, withdraw, give up, or you can get mad and use the negative feedback as rocket fuel. What does that mean? It means every time you get something negative, you just get angrier and you push harder and you do everything you can to overcome whatever's happened that's negative, and you just don't give up, and you use all that feedback as something that you're going to allow to push you. You're going to learn from your lessons. And so that's the biggest point that I would give you. I would search for the term rocket fuel, Harrison Barnes or something like that, because there is a article I think I did about that. Maybe I can find it. Rocket fuel, Harrison Barnes. And by the way, a lot of the stuff I talk about, let me see, 100 rocket fuel. I don't even know. Maybe this isn't the right article. Let's see. Anyway, a lot of this stuff that people do that makes them successful is because they use negatives to make them more motivated, as opposed to withdraw and feel badly. And just look at successful politicians. Do you think, and I'm not trying to upset people here by supporting one political party or another, but someone like Donald Trump, he's certainly got an incredible amount of negative feedback from being sued by people, by being impeached, by all this sort of stuff. That's negative feedback, but he keeps going, and you should too. Whatever you're trying to do, you need to keep going. Everybody receives negative feedback. Michael Jordan didn't make the high school basketball team. You constantly get negative feedback, but then you learn from it and you become even better and better. And any type of negative feedback that you get in a law firm or wherever you are is all correctable. It's things that you can improve and not do differently in the future. I would suggest doing everything that you can to use negative feedback as something to empower you, to make you get mad instead of withdrawing and giving up. That's withdrawing and giving up again, I'm not trying to call you anything, but there's people that lose and give up, and there are people who never give up and end up winning. And again, I'm not supporting any particular religion here or anything like that. Almost every religious text you read has stories about people facing these great challenges and being in a position where they're giving up, and then God or some force coming to them and saying, you have to keep trying, and then they end up succeeding. There's a famous story, I think it's in the Think and Grow Rich book, and Henry Ford decided that he wanted to have a 12-cylinder engine for a car, and so he gathered a bunch of engineers together, and I told them what he wanted to do, and they said it's impossible. And he said, I don't care, just go and do it and figure it out. And so they came back in 6 months and they said, it's impossible. And he said, keep working on it. And they said, we came back months later and they said the same thing. But he kept, even though they were discouraged, he told them to keep going. And eventually, of course, they were able to make a 12-cylinder engine. So the point is that most people wouldn't do a challenge like that. They would give up. It's the same thing with people in anything. They don't use the negative stuff that happens to empower them. They use it to disempower them. And often that's one of the dumbest things you can possibly do. You need to take negatives and turn them into positives. And that's what the most successful politicians do. It's what Thomas Edison, facing thousands of light bulbs, and everyone that succeeds always comes up against a lot of negatives and turns them into positive. Let me just read this question first. Okay, so this question is about someone looks like they want to start their own practice doing something. Okay, you mentioned people who took the unconventional route of becoming personal injury attorneys, or how they do that. Which practice areas beyond personal injury are favorable for entrepreneurial attorneys? Okay, so the thing about personal injury attorneys is, yes, you can certainly learn this profession on your own. There are a lot of support organizations and people that help personal injury attorneys with their own practices and start that and then become good at it. That way, a lot of people do start out as solo practitioners learning personal injury and figuring it out, or a lot of them work for firms. I personally would recommend working for a firm first. What happens in a lot of these positions is personal injury. You may get a job in a major market like Los Angeles, and a personal injury law firm may pay you $50,000 or $60,000 or even $45,000 to start. But the benefit is you're learning everything, and then you can do the same thing yourself. So it's just, there's different ways of learning things. A lot of personal injury attorneys I know may have worked for someone, just one person, that's the person for a couple of years, and then done things. It's just, you have to, if you want to do something, you always figure out how to do it. So this next question is, what other practice areas are favorable for entrepreneur attorneys? One of the big ones that a lot of people succeed in is trust and estates. The reason that's good is the same thing. There's a lot of people there's a lot of training for trust and estates attorneys. There's all sorts of ways for trust and estates attorneys to get clients. We'll do things like send a letter to every person in a nursing home telling them they have I'll pick them up in a bus and take them to a free steak dinner, and they'll talk to them about trust and estates, make a quick discussion about that, making a will and everything. And then when they do that, they get business. I mean, there's all sorts of ways. Trust and estates people, it's a good practice. And I don't know if I talked about this. I sat and think last week, but I was looking at some office space in Malibu, and the person that was showing it to me said something along the lines of, this guy got out of Pepperdine Law School 3 years ago or something, or 4 years ago, and started this practice, his own law firm, and he just bought a $5 million house because he's making so much money as a trust and estates attorney. You can do things like that. Anything that's consumer facing. So any consumer facing practice areas, meaning working for people. So it can be things like workers' compensation, anything that you're representing people is very profitable, can be very profitable. It's when you see banners and stuff or billboards around cities or personal injury attorneys, the reason they're able to do that is because they get these cases and they settle like 95% of them. They know how much they're worth. Then the law firm keeps 40% of that money, plus they take expenses out. So it's a very lucrative type of position can be a very lucrative job for a lot of people. And anything that you're working for consumers. So trust and estates, wills, it can be residential real estate transactions. It can be anything where you're representing people. It just has to be something where there's a niche that you're satisfying some sort of niche. How do we show obsession in a resume? So the way to show obsession is to show focus on a practice area, both in your jobs, career choices, meaning where you've worked, or in where you've worked, what you have done in your jobs. And then another one is I would say here, the improvements and upward mobility of your resume, moving to better environment, to places that are bigger, better, and show more focus. You might start work at a firm that does one type of law and others, and then you move to one that's bigger. It does more of the type of law, all that sort of thing. You may join associations related to that, related to the practice area, and get roles there. You may become an expert, become the go-to person in your firm for that issue. You talk, write papers, and then you show a history of interest. I see resumes all the time. I'll see a resume of someone that college and majored in nursing or something, and got out of school, became a nurse, and then worked in hospital, then went to law school, joined Health Law Association, and was an officer or whatever, took a lot of classes of health law, worked in a hospital's legal department, and the next year worked in a health law firm, and some well-known health law firm, and there were a bunch of them. And then when they got in health law, majored and became an expert in something related to Medicaid. Those kind of people, if that person was looking for a job, you obviously would want to hire them, because if you had a health law opening, because everything about that person points to health law, and those people and then not only that, but Medicaid. So these sorts of people get hired. Sometimes you'll see an attorney that does maybe employee benefits, and then maybe they have a master's degree. I don't know, all these with master's degree. That sort of thing happens. If you're very committed to a practice area, it's very easy for law firms to pick up on that and to see that. And who would you hire? If you had a health law opening, would you hire someone that's just dabbling in it and says, I did this and that? Or would you hire someone with that type of focus. And so these are the kind of people that get jobs. These are the kind of people who get employed and go the farthest as they show that level of obsession. And I'll just tell you another thing that I saw recently that I thought was funny. I saw this woman in Los Angeles. She was working somewhere as maybe like a corporate lawyer or something. I don't remember. But on her resume, she had all this stuff about how she was in the entertainment stuff in college and did entertainment related associations in law school. Then after she got out of college, she worked for an entertainment company. And then after her first summer, she worked at an entertainment company and then did all the stuff related to entertainment and left this on her resume. And I don't know why, but there was something about her that enabled her to get a corporate job and all this thing. But if you look at a resume like that, where someone's talking about nothing but their entertainment law, I mean, you know, that's where they're going. So why would you probably there's something wrong with the firm that is hiring someone like that, because that's what the person wants. If that person wanted to be a corporate lawyer, you would not want to put all that stuff on your resume. You would take off all that stuff because you're basically telling people that you want to do something else. Resumes that show that don't go far. Another very common thing that people are doing on their resumes these days is they will start listing as if it's the law firm that wants to make money off them is impressed by this. I've seen resumes, lots of them, from people that went to top law schools. They will have a resume. They will talk about the employer they'll list the employer. And at the beginning, they will have all this information about all these different pro bono things I did. And then one or two lines or one line at the end of the resume saying, also worked on M&A transactions or something. This is very common. Or people will litter their resumes with all sorts of things, whether it's associations, whether it's political affiliations, whether then it's anything that shows this is what's important to me. So someone that's a Republican or a Democrat or whatever that makes the resume all about that does not show an obsession with a practice area. Your resume people should look at it and be like, this person's focused into what they want to do. And so this is one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give people for your resumes is you need to make sure that it looks like you're interviewing and getting hired for being a specialist, someone that wants to do stuff. And if you don't, you're just going to get run over and not get where you should do. And the other thing to understand about this obsession with a resume is what I'm talking about also applies to clients hiring you. Client's not going to hire you if you say you do all 15 different things. They're going to hire you if you're an expert. If you're obsessed with something and you're continually improving, then that's great. And I'll just say one final thing. Regardless of what you're interested in, it could be workers' compensation, it could be insurance defense, it could be commercial litigation. You should become very interested in it. You should be writing articles and keeping files and looking for developments and reading things, going to association meetings. You should be, because that's what you need to do to succeed. And then if you don't do that, then you're not going to. If you do that and you're committed to a practice area, clients are going to see that. Your clients are going to pick up on it. They will talk to one attorney who will just be like, oh, we'll work on it, no problem. And they'll talk to you and you will have all sorts of brilliant insights and things into the practice area that will be far different than anyone else. And so they think about what you would think. If you talk to a doctor and that doctor had all sorts of papers and focus and awards and associations, you would be much more interested in that person than you would be in a person that was just getting willy-wally and did a bunch of different things. You would hire the person that's committed. And it's the same thing with law firms, the same thing with clients. All right, let me get the next question. Okay. Would you please address the issue of how artificial intelligence, AI, is going to impact law practice? Because it also is really watering down practice of law. Reality, only 0.5% of cases go to trial, and the rest of litigation cases settled out. So negotiating mediation skills are statistically more valuable sets. Please provide what your perspective is on the new AI technology. So I'm not an expert. I actually just did go to a seminar, but a talk about AI technology and so forth in the practice of law. If you're talking about litigation, I guess that's what you're doing. Talk about litigation. I think that AI, et cetera, will be able to, as it gets access to data, will be able to predict or to give the most likely settlements at different types of cases with different fact patterns. That's actually, I know the person actually hard here. No, I don't, but I know someone that, so you would literally feed in the fact pattern of the case or even a complaint. And then based on having access to similar cases and stuff then the AI will be able to predict what the value of the case is. And that's actually already happening. So that's one of the biggest things. And so I don't know if it waters it down. It actually levels the playing field, because smaller law firms and attorneys can know the value of their cases instead of relying on other things. So I interviewed yesterday an attorney to be a recruiter in our company, and he's a practicing lawyer. And he said that he had this one case, and there was a policy on the case, and it was for $25 million. And his partner said the most they're going to get out of them is $2 or $3 million. And he said, basically, based on his gut instinct, this case, I believe, we're going to get at least 20 million from him in settlement. So they went into settlement, and he got 20 million from the other client because their policy limits, and knew it. But imagine when you have something like AI, it can tell you where you're most likely to get. Let me just see where you're most likely to get. I just want to see if I can pull something up here. It's interesting. Where you're most likely to get information. Where you're most likely to get opportunities. And we already use here at BCG. I don't know, this might be interesting to you. I will send this out to people eventually, but we keep track of different practice areas and like how many candidates and the number of unique candidates, the ratios of submissions and things. So we already use a lot of this to understand what the most in-demand practice areas are and how people will fare based on to that. So it's actually pretty interesting that you can figure all this stuff out. I'm just this based on different sorts of things. You can figure out ratios of things. This is actually one of the more interesting things here. I don't know if this is big enough to see, but let me just see if I can make it bigger. Where you can see ratios of different types of attorneys. In this case, actually the most popular practice area, you wouldn't believe it, but is plaintiff's product liability. That's the most popular practice area in the country. And then plaintiff's medical malpractice. So people in those practice areas have the most, and workers' compensation have the best chance of, and these are showing you the ratios. And then sometimes as you go down, you're seeing things that are actually not good. So it's all very interesting, like how practice areas and things, what's important. And then so you'll be actually, what I'm seeing is in my profession, you'll be actually predict how likely it is that someone will get a job based on sort of information. But I know that's not a lot, it doesn't quite answer your question, but I think the biggest thing with things that this here in this one, it's this next question. And of course, AI can help write briefs. It can write responses to briefs and that sort of thing. What will you do if a law firm will not provide feedback, even though you repeatedly solicit it? And we'll not talk about except regarding housekeeping. Law firms sometimes won't provide feedback because they're busy. And if they provide negative feedback, they will feel like they'll be in a position where the law people will dislike them and quit. So they're very careful with that. Sometimes the law firms are too busy to provide feedback. Sometimes they're not organized enough. Sometimes, who knows, but they're not providing any feedback, then you just need to do the best you can without feedback. You need to be internally self-motivated. And if you're not internally self-motivated, and then you will have issues. So you need to not worry about the feedback. You need to just do the best you can and not really worry about others, and then just commit to doing the absolute best work you can and working as hard as you can. Typically, if you don't hear anything negative in a law firm, then you're doing things well. If you do hear negative stuff, then you're not. Okay. As says, question. This for this person. Have you read the book 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals? Please review it. This book provides a great perspective on many of the goals in life. Okay, this is good. Someone's recommending this book, which sounds like a good book, Time Management for Mortals. And it's impossible to do everything you want, choose what you're going to fail at. Yeah, so there's lots of goal-keeping things that you can do. I did say at the beginning of this that I would give some examples. This is a good book. It's called The Best Year Journal. So it enables you to, and I like this. I did it last year. It enables you to review your past year and what you did. And so you spend a lot of time doing that. And then you'll learn lessons from what you did the previous year. And then you establish, this is like, just see, this is, you establish 5 goals for the year, and then you break it down by months and different things. So it's actually very helpful. And so your book looks good too. And I'll take a look at that. But that's one thing I've done. I've done a lot of different goal setting things, like Tony Robbins has this incredibly complex thing that I've done before, but it takes weeks. It's 4 volumes and stuff to get everything. It's a lot of work. That's another one. And there's a bunch of them up there. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, as long as you choose something. And I agree with you that it's better to have small goals. When I talked about goals today, I was basically saying you want to commit to just a few goals or one goal, something you want to do, and then go with that. Okay, I didn't practice law after school. Only recently became licensed in my home state around the time of the coronavirus. My current resume goes back more than 10 years. I'm wondering how I should short this. I'm self-conscious about my age, and interviewers sometimes assume I also just graduated from law school. How do I handle this awkward situation? Okay, this is a good question. By the way, this is someone that may not have wanted to answer this question. And it's very common for people to graduate from law school. Sometimes they get called into doing things for their families or kids, or sometimes life takes them elsewhere and then they want to come back. The big thing to remember that everyone should understand is everyone is employable, is employable somewhere, right? If you have things in your background that are not strong, or background that are problematic, then you need to find someone that will hire you in spite of that. So it means finding employers that others may not be applying to. So that's it. So that's what you do. So you apply to places that are small, that may not receive unsolicited applications. Very common thing for people in your situation is to, let's say you're in, I don't know what a good place for you to be, Saginaw, Michigan. You could say, and you want to do personal injury. I'm just bringing that up, but personal injury lawyers in Saginaw, Michigan, something like that. So you're going to get all these people, regardless of what city you're in. There's all these people that do this work. The idea is you could apply to Dowd Mitchell. You could apply to whatever this is, the law office of Alan Crawford, whatever your practice area, wherever you're living. There's going to be lots of people. You can be able to find people to do it, and no one's going to be applying to them. So you can do that, and you just apply to places that others might not. You agree to work for less money than others would, than to get jobs. You just do all this stuff. So that's all there is to it. So it's not really that hard to get a job. It's not hard to get a job if you're older. It's not hard to get a job if you don't have a lot of experience. You just have to find someone willing to hire you. The hardest places to get jobs typically get a lot of applications and interest. So what does that mean? The hardest places to get jobs can afford to eliminate lots of people for small things. So lots of people for small things. If you're trying to get a job, and this is very interesting, if you're trying to get a job in some major cities and you worked at a big firm and you're no longer employed, if you're laid off or fired, well, you're competing against people that haven't been laid off or fired for the same jobs. And if the firm's receiving countless applications from those people, it's less risk to hire someone that's working than not working. So a lot of times people will lose their jobs in major cities and have a hard time finding jobs. The smartest thing to do is you either work for a smaller firm and then move up to a bigger firm later, or you work in another market that's not receiving as many applications. So this particular strategy is something everyone should understand. Everything is about the law of supply and demand. So you will always be able to get a job. It just won't be the job that you want. People that come out of every law school in the country are able to get jobs. It just depends on, it's just going to be the type of job. So that's all you need to be concerned about, is what kind of job you're able to get. Okay, this is a good question. So let's see here. I often struggle with balancing my personal life and professional ambitions. Have you ever faced a situation where your desire to achieve your goals negatively impacted your personal life, and how did you manage it? Yes, this is a big thing. I remember there's some firms where every partner has been divorced, where that sort of thing. So it is very difficult to effectively many times balance your professional ambitions over their personal life, and you just need to make a decision of what's most important. I personally, my belief is doesn't matter. I think the personal life is a very important thing. Why would you don't want to penalize your kids or penalize but it's up to you. I mean, a lot of people that become very successful in the practice of law don't see their families or are divorced or don't have a good relationship with their kids or have substance abuse problems. And not everyone, but a lot of people, if you prioritize your professional ambitions, that's what you'll have if you prioritize your personal life. Or you can try to figure out how to prioritize both of them so that when you can accept jobs based on that. You can go to firms based on that. You can do whatever you want. And a lot of people will prioritize their personal life. That's what's important to them. And if that's what's important to you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's probably good for your kids and your spouse or significant other. So it's not to say that one's better than the other, but if you don't prioritize your personal life and you prioritize your professional ambitions, that could help hurt you. You're seeing here, you struggle to balance personal and professional ambition. I've certainly, faced that situation, and what ends up happening is you're not there for your family in the way you should be. You miss memories, all that sort of thing. I try to manage it. What I do is when I have goals this is another goal set. I think it's fun. I'll just show you the page. So every month this is another thing. It's called Clever Fox. I review there's a circle and it has health and fitness, business and career, family and friends, relationship, personal development, finance, recreation, spiritual. It has all those kind of things, and you go through and you give yourself a score. So you would have personal life score, career score. You put all this in a score, and then you would have relationship. And you put all that stuff into like a pie chart, and there's other things, spirituality. But you put all that stuff into a pie chart, and then you look at what you're missing and not. And so then you can draw your attention to that. But that's okay. So there's a final question. If no one has any questions, I think I'm actually done, which is great. Let me see. I showed it. There are a couple more questions. Something about the journal I showed. So let me see. In the competitive field of law, many attorneys face burnout or lose their initial desire for success. What advice can you find for reigniting one's passion and desire for career advancement? You have to want something. And you're right. Burnout is very common. It's very common, by the way. I've noticed, and I always bring this point up, when people start out their careers, they often may not go to the best law schools, and they may not start out best firms, and they may actually spend their career maybe in small and mid-sized firms. Almost all those people that don't come out of law school with the best backgrounds that start in smaller firms and stuff probably end up making a lot more money and having longer careers in the practice of law than the people that go to the top law schools. Because people that go to the top law schools more often than not, do get burned out and disillusioned, and then they run from the practice of law either by not doing or by finding jobs in-house or things, or going to other practice settings that aren't as lucrative and don't provide as much growth sometimes. You have to keep your motivation and energy up and be able to recharge and continue forward even when it looks very tough. The only way to reignite your passion and desire is to continually come back to something that means something for you and give yourself a reason why. I want to be the best commercial litigator representing technology companies and semiconductor space in the country, whatever it is. And you figure out all the reasons you want to do it and you list them. And if you do that, that's what was going to help. So someone actually brought up, just see here a second, they brought up this product that I like pretty good, Best Year Journal. Right here, this is the one I was talking about. What is this one? Yeah, so this is the Best Year Journal. This is fun. I'd like to use. I used this last year, so it's pretty cool. It allows you to review different types of goals for yourself, set goals for the month, look back on what you did, and it takes a while to complete it, but it's a very good exercise, especially at the beginning of the year. And then this is another one that's fun. This one is also a planner, but you plan your weeks and write down what you did in the week that helped you go towards your goal. So that's helpful. And then let me just see, another one that I like is, a lot of this stuff you can sometimes Clever Fox Planner. This one is cool. This is a Clever Fox Planner. And this is another good one. This enables you to plan your months and so forth as well. Those are some ones I recommend. I think the Bester Journal is very good, but it helps you break down goals in small chunks and follow them. But the most important thing you can do when you're creating goals is basically just to have them and then go back to them again and again and remind yourself of them. Because if you do that, you will find that you actually achieve those goals. Whereas if you didn't, you'll just be wandering aimlessly and you won't achieve them. But most people that write down their goals, they typically become very close. They typically achieve them or get very, very close to achieving them. Okay, more than achievement. Can you give a transition? Can you please address how to transition from being an attorney to becoming a judge? Okay, I'm not an expert in this. There's all sorts of different types of judges. There are municipal, there's state, there's just all federal, there's different levels of judges and so forth. How do you become a judge? Sometimes people are elected judges in different areas. Sometimes you have to get nominated, which is most common. You basically need to figure out how do you become the sort of judge you want to be, and you network. Sometimes people do it through county bar associations. Other times, literally some municipal judgeships and things may be advertised. And I've seen that. So there's different levels of judges. Federal judges are typically in a political party and they represent their good candidate because of their Democrat or Republican. So they're appointed by a Republican or president. A lot of times municipal and state court judges are prosecutors and connect in the government. So it's wherever you are. If you want to do something, if it's a type of attorney or if it's become a judge, you need to see what is a career path that people that have become these types of judges have followed. Like how do other people become judges? And then when you have that goal, you make a decision to do it and you become motivated towards that goal, and you will be hired by people that see your motivation to do it, whether it's a municipal judge, a state judge, a federal judge. There's magistrates, there's all sorts of, judges. I've seen judges in different types of roles. I don't even know, auto ticket judges and things that it's like their first job out of law school. There's just all sorts of different types of judges. You can be a judge for a state agency arbitrating employment claims. There's just so many different types of judges. So it's important to look into the type of judge you want. Okay. I think that's it. So I'm glad we got all the questions answered. And thank you everyone for being part of this webinar and all the questions. And I think when you learn this stuff, a lot of these things that we talk about can dramatically change the course of your life and how you're seen and how well you can support your family and how well the market respects you and all that sort of thing. So I hope this was helpful. I think probably next week, I'm not sure, but I think we'll probably we do quarterly resume reviews. And I'm happy, I will review resumes, but I also talk about if you do send your resume and how marketable the resume looks. So looking at things like showing a commitment to your practice of law and all that sort of stuff we'll look at. And that type of resume reviews often for people are very personal and that they can get upset when someone's critiquing their resume. I certainly know when I was young, people would critique my resume or my cover letter or that sort of thing. I would have been very upset by it. It's actually good to have your resume reviewed because I can see things just from having put hundreds of thousands of resumes, what makes people marketable and not. So that could actually be very helpful. Okay. And we will send out hopefully in the next few days, Friday, a link to who to send your resume to and so forth. And that'll actually, I think a resume review is a lot of fun because you can see it. I try to go review all the resumes, and sometimes there's resumes that are very similar. A lot of times those are foreign resumes. So I won't review all of those, but I'll review like one or so or two. But most of the time they're going to be very productive. We'll look at law student resumes, we'll look at in-house resumes, we'll look at big law firm, small law firm. And then when you do submit your resume, we always change the name of your current employer. We will also take out your name and all the address if you don't take it out. So that's a good thing about resume review. And I enjoy doing the resume reviews because I think just some of the changes you can make can really affect the outlook in your career. So thank you everyone for being here. And again, next week, I think it's the resume review. And I hope all this helped. And it's really important stuff. So thank you.